Okay, YouTube friends, can you see me? Confirm. Someone drop a note in the chat saying that you can hear and see me. How about Facebook? Someone drop a note in the chat letting me know that you can hear and see me right now. Need some participation. Someone drop something in the chat confirming that you are hearing me on Facebook. Anyone on YouTube, confirm. Type physically a note saying, Ayo, I can hear you. Thank you, Ernie. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you, Alberto, for your participation. Guys, this is going to be a live Q&A. So if you want to participate and get your questions answered, today is not the time to be bashful. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take in the questions as they come. I have a couple of questions that people submitted online as well. We'll get to after that. We'd planned for about an hour or so, but if we go longer and you guys want to really get down in the weeds, we can do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the feedback from this live session and use it to create the lesson 4 for this week so that I can have a perfect idea of where your guys' headspace is at so that we can move on to future lessons and move in the right direction. So please send your first question. Anyone can fire away. So far, no one has asked a question. It'll be first come, first serve. All right, let's see here. We have one from Heretiana. Hi, Ayo. Couldn't check all the content yet because of your work. There's no deadline on your courses. No, there's no deadline on the courses. I created the Medium course, and that's a standalone. It's self-paced. You can take it at your own leisure. This 8-week personal transformation course, I'm building 1 week at a time. But if you're behind, you can start from the beginning and go through the 8 weeks at your own time. But ideally, you would be doing it along with us. Marco, what can I do if I feel emotionally stuck? I want to start a new project and I feel that I am stuck in perfectionism. Being emotionally stuck is really tough. You have to deal with all of those demons and inner critic feelings and voices in your head telling you that you're not good enough, telling you that you are not capable and worthy enough to achieve that perfection that you want to see for yourself. And the way to get over it, as simple and kind of cliche as it sounds, is you have to do the work. Like if you have a new project and you are really, really, really struggling with perfectionism, you have to figure out what is step 1 of the new project. Do whatever step 1 is, and you have to find a way to like remove everything aside from that step you're doing and just do that one step. I really like that analogy of going to the gym when you're out of shape. When you go to the gym and you're out of shape, all you can think about is how horrible it is to have to do all of that work and lose all that weight and you have all that doubt. But the only thing you can do is go to the gym on day 1 and do that struggle workout. So for Marco, you're going to have to do that struggle workout equivalent of whatever it is. And when it comes to perfectionism, you have to understand that it's really derived from a place where you're caring a lot about what other people think about what you put out, with your work. It's not even necessarily so much that you're worried about living up to your own standards. Like that perfectionism comes from your kind of subconscious wanting to approve of other people. So you have to find a way to ship the work. There's no replacement for doing that first initial step. But then you have to realize that nobody really cares about what you're doing in the first place. And it's not really all that big of a deal to take step one if you remove everything else and then you move to steps 2, 3, 4, and beyond. Next question. How do you find clarity about who you really are? A good relationship, good job, hobbies, fitness are going fine, but still something feels incomplete. A sense of connection is missing. Is this common? It's extremely common. We all feel like we're trying to bridge the gap and find this clarity about this person that we really are. And I think the biggest issue with that is we have this belief that there's going to be an endpoint where we figure that out. It's like with me, I thought that once I saw all of my dreams, become a writer, do this, make enough money, do that I was going to be perfectly content and whole, and that I was going to fully know who I was. But lo and behold, once I reached that point, I was just hit with a new set of goals, a new set of challenges, a new set of developing that identity of who I want to be. So you have to come to the understanding that it's never going to be perfect and that your identity is always going to be fluid to a degree. And you'll get kind of closer and closer to that core personality of who you are. And you'll actually get the closest to it by letting go of needing to be this one specific person or having this one specific destination. Who you are will evolve over time. And kind of relating back to the question earlier with feeling stuck, the more action you take, the more consecutive days in a row, the more consecutive weeks in a row, the more consecutive months and years in a row that you spend on self-improvement, spend on working on your projects, then it becomes easier to feel like you're becoming your true self. Let's see what we have next. See what we have on Facebook. Thank you. I want to focus on writing as my route for the next 90 days. I want to use it as a framework for producing more writing, in particular academic writing, not exclusively creative blogging or opinion pieces, etc. Do you have any tips about academic writing? I don't come from an academic writing background, so I don't necessarily have the best answer. What you would want to do is make sure that you're looking at people who are successful in academic writing and reverse engineer what they're doing. So every field that you come into, there's people who are good at what they're doing, people at the top, people are successful, and you'll be better at doing what you want to do if you can look at what they're doing and reverse engineer it backwards to the origin point where you are. So maybe in your case, all the good academic writers are being published in this specific journal or these specific sets of journals. Maybe they have these specific credentials. They have these specific topics and subjects that work well. So you find those and you reverse engineer that back to where you're at. And you have to imagine what those people at the top were like when they were in your position and start from there. So I looked at a lot of famous and popular writers and I'm like, okay, what did they do to get where they're at? I saw that they had been publishing for years. I saw that they found particular popular websites to post their work. I found that they use certain strategies. So I'd look into the future and I would reverse engineer and say, okay, I have no experience. I have no audience. I have no real solid skills yet. What do I do to build that? And then I move forward and I kind of track those steps in reverse and kind of fill in the same lane that they went through. And then when you reach a certain point, you can kind of break off and do your own thing. If you have more than one thing you want to do, would you recommend working on both at the same time or focus on one thing first and add another later? Without question, focus on one thing first. How are you going to be good at two things if you're not good at one thing, right? There's the saying, he who chases two rabbits catches neither. And I get what that's like. I've been a person who has had many different interests throughout my life, but it was that ability to focus on writing, to focus on that initial foundational pillar to where I got that to a point where I can make a living from it, where I can sustain it, or I don't have to focus 100% of my attention to be successful at it. So now I can do YouTube, public speaking, vlogging, all these different things. So there's one that'll probably speak to you more. Focus on that one, build that pillar, and then you can move on to something else. Big doubt choosing a project for the next 90 days, a real immersion in a marketing course I bought for, or B- attack my lack of discipline. Okay. If you bought a course and you have chosen 90 days to work on it, just finish the course. Just do the course and see what the results are like. I remember going through courses, blog posts, tutorials, guides on what to do. And I would always want to skip one of the steps. So there'd be like 17 steps in the course or the guideline, and I'd want to do 15 or 16. But I ended up doing all 17. And then you can judge whether or not you were successful by the time that you're done with it. 90 days is a blip on the radar in your life. And what most people do is they don't want to do anything for 90 days in a row. So what do you have? You have a lifetime of indecision. So counterintuitively, you waste a ton of time by not wanting to, quote unquote, sacrifice 90-day chunks. Do that 90-day chunk, finish the course. These courses on marketing, personal development, business, those courses work, but you just have to finish them. They have super low completion rates, but the people who actually complete them end up being successful. How can I stop time-wasting activities like playing games, scrolling through social media, and channel the time into compound time like reading books and journaling? Start small and don't beat yourself up too much about how productive you are after that. So in my case, I waste a lot of time on my phone. I have a phone addiction. I scroll mindlessly through Twitter all the time. Sometimes I end up getting in YouTube rabbit holes. My day is not always productive. Like I always aim for having like a big 8-10 hour productive day, but actually rarely it never happens. I'm rarely perfect ever. So what I do is I really create one criteria that I use for my standard of success. And if I meet that, then everything else that I do is a kind of house money bonus. So for me, that's writing. If I get 1 hour of writing done, if I get, an hour or two of writing done, I get a blog post done, I get something done, I write, then everything else I just count as a win. And I don't beat myself up too much about not being super productive the whole time. So in your case, if you want to read, you're trying to build a reading habit, what is the minimum viable reading habit that you need? 30 minutes? If that's too high, 10 minutes. You'd be surprised if you set a goal for reading a book for 10 minutes, all of a sudden it's been an hour. So set a small goal and don't worry too much about everything that happens outside of that. I have a question about personal stuff impacting progress. I'm usually fairly self-driven, but often when something, example given, kid not feeling well or some emotional stress goes awry in my family life, I tend to get completely sidetracked, especially because all the deadlines are mine to make and break. Any advice on how to tackle this? Yeah, kind of similar to what I kind of addressed the last question. If you make your commitment to what you want to do so minimum that it's very achievable to repeat over and over again, you have more of a tendency to be able to forgive yourself when things in your life are kind of haywire or going south. So what happens with a lot of people, they don't set kind of that minimum viable commitment and they don't build up enough momentum. It's like when you build momentum, like let's say you've been working on your project in baby steps for like 90 days or 6 months. If you have a week that just goes totally haywire, then you can get back and refocus. But what happens to a lot of people is they never build up any momentum. So anytime something in your life goes south, you don't have anything to fall back on because you haven't built a foundation. So all this is about building a foundation, finding something you can stick with on a daily or near daily basis to build that reserve. So even if your kids are not feeling well or you have some emotional stress, things like that, you can still reach your commitment of doing whatever it is that you need to do on a daily basis for 10 minutes. You can find 10 minutes in a chaotic, wait till your kid is asleep, they're sick, they're asleep, you feel tired, you feel out of whack, but you're like, okay, I'll do 10 minutes of my minimum viable commitment. Yeah, that 10-minute session was kind of shitty, really wasn't all that good, but you still did it. So that continues to help you build momentum. And really all this stuff boils down to, it's not necessarily the quality of what you're doing. You could have a writing session. Let's say you have 7 writing sessions and 5 of them are good and 2 of them were awful and you got nothing good down on the page. Your kind of subconscious mind doesn't care about the quality of what you did. Your subconscious mind sees that you wrote for 7 days straight. I don't have everything I do that is not good every single day. I have some days where there are complete mulligans. I've had days where I've had emotional stuff going on in my life and I barely managed to get out a couple hundred words and the rest of the day was shot. But since I have so much accumulated momentum, I could come back the next day and kind of wipe the slate clean and start over again. Let's see what we have next. Is it possible to fall in love after 25 years? No, I'm 26. I fell in love with my classmate girl about 10 years ago. She loved me too, but I rejected her because of my lack of confidence. Is it possible to fall in love after 25 years? Sure. It's possible to fall in love earlier than that. You might not fall in love until you're 35. You might not find the perfect person until you're 40. Just work on your social skills, work on your confidence. Go on a couple of dates. You're young. You'll meet somebody eventually. There's usually somebody out there for all of us. Just got to get out there, leave the house, go on some dates. You'll be all right, my friend. What has happened to the streaming? Don, are you having trouble with my streaming right now? Can someone confirm that they're still seeing me on YouTube? Can someone confirm that you're still seeing me on Facebook? Okay, YouTube's good. Facebook peeps, are we looking good on Facebook? All right, I'll wait for Facebook. I'll keep taking questions on YouTube. So I had this dream of becoming a novelist since I was about 9, but I'm worried, is it really what I want to do or just a pretty idea that I've grown attached to and now can't abandon? Write the book and find out. Write the book and you'll have a much more of a better answer than you ever will endlessly, mindlessly stewing about whether or not you should do it. Jim Rohn has this saying, and he's like, even if something isn't going to work out, I want to go ahead and do it so that I can just find out faster, especially with writing fiction books. You don't have to write the great American novel in order to be successful as a fiction artist. There's kind of a trend in fiction where a lot of fiction authors are serializing their work, where they're publishing a lot shorter novels, which are kind of more akin to one Netflix episode as opposed to a movie. So you can just put a book out there. Good resources for fiction self-publishing are Joanna Penn at The Creative Pen, thecreativepen.com. It's 2 N's. Sean Platt and Johnny B. Truant. They are some serial fiction authors that you can take a look at. But yeah, you'll find You'll find out whether or not you want to write a book by writing the book. You'll never find it out by thinking about writing it. So you have to write it. So the idea is piling up small victories during 90 days to build confidence and momentum. Is it? Absolutely. Absolutely. You want to pile up small victories. Your brain does not care about the magnitude of the victories. That's the problem when it comes to most people when they're trying to accomplish their dreams. We all want to be home run hitters. We all want to be in the big league right away. We don't like the idea of slow and steady progress. And we think that everything has to work out perfectly in order for us to be successful. There's this other anecdote I heard one time from, his name is Ramit Sethi. He owns a website called I Will Teach You to Be Rich, which is kind of a gimmicky name, but it's a really good website. Maybe go check that out. But he was talking about, there was this woman that he knew, and she said that she wanted to run 3 times a week. But she only ended up running like once a week. So she abandoned the idea of running altogether because she didn't meet some imaginary quota. Rather, if she would have kept her minimum viable commitment of running once per week and did it over a stretch of a couple months, she'd still be running. But no, she quit because she had to run 3 times a week or else it wasn't successful. So you have to pile up whatever levels of momentum that you need to create that upward spiral. So if it's 10 minutes a day, then it's 10 minutes a day. If it's 5 minutes a day, then it's 5 minutes a day. One strategy that I actually like quite a bit, a good strategy, is it's called the chain strategy. So the way the chain strategy works is you buy a physical calendar, and each day that you do a successful activity, you mark an X. I did that when I was really overweight and I wanted to get back in shape. I was doing this fitness program and it came with that calendar. So each time I did my workout, like the first week, I didn't really want to do the workouts, but then I had 5 X's in a row. And then I just marked off X's for the weekend because that's the rest period, but it still counts. You're taking care of yourself, rest period. So then I had 7 X's in a row. And then it created a longer chain. And then next thing you know, I had like 20 days of progress, and you feel really bad about breaking that super long snake or chain of good days. So that's one good kind of productivity hack that I actually like, the chain strategy. So grab a calendar, create like a visual representation of you having consistent progress. And then looking at that visual, the longer you make that chain, the less likely you are to break it. TJ, how difficult is it to get curated? For those who don't know, he's talking about the website medium.com, and Medium has a team of editors who curate work, meaning they choose it to kind of get some extra promotion. How difficult is it to get curated? It's not super difficult to get curated. The number one thing for all writers out there, why you're not getting curated, why you're not getting a lot of views right away, why you're seeming to struggle on Medium, is because you're writing about idiosyncratic subjects that only apply to you and that don't really apply to the people who are reading it. So like in my Medium course, I teach people traditional blogging techniques to be successful. Then after you learn those traditional blogging techniques, you can kind of meander about and be more esoteric in the future. But what I see with a lot of people who are not getting curated on Medium, who aren't successful as writers in general, they basically kind of just spill out their emotions and write the equivalent of a personal journal on their blog and write about all their like idiosyncratic hobbies and interests. And they basically just talk about themselves the whole time. That's usually why people aren't getting curated. They pick weird titles. You know, they don't stick to simple frameworks that work, and they try to reinvent the wheel. So don't try to reinvent the wheel. Do what happens in the Medium course, finish the Medium course, then come back and let me know how your curation has gone. Hey, I'm interested in writing, but I'm considering copywriting. I've already purchased the course and see more profitable career potential there, but fiction writing is the lifelong passion I've always pushed aside. If I'm looking for a career change, do I chase the passion or do I combine the passion with the choice for greater income potential. Get the shekels first. Do the esoteric passion later. Become a copywriter first. It'll teach you things that you need to know to be a successful novelist anyways. That person I was telling you before, Sean Platt, he started out as a copywriter before he became a serial fiction novelist, and kind of the business acumen he learned from copywriting, the elements of human nature. Like if you learn how to write copy and you learn how to become really good at copy, you basically understand human nature itself. You understand exactly how the mind works, what people's desires are, what their fears are, and then you can parlay that a lot better into writing fiction. And getting that kind of boots and lunch pail attitude that comes from copywriting is just drilling down and following a formula will actually help you be pretty productive as a fiction novelist. And you already bought the copywriting course, so don't jump from course to course. Finish that course and then move on to greater things in the future. What is the best platform to start blogging on? Medium.com. Medium.com. Simple. Medium.com. Best platform to start blogging on. You can create a WordPress blog, and I do suggest that people eventually have a WordPress blog because you don't want to rely solely on the benevolence of another platform permanently. So I do think people should do WordPress in the future. I'll probably add some modules on WordPress and email list marketing and advanced marketing in the future for the Medium course, but I wanted to stick to people primarily focusing on Medium because it has the greatest audience and income earning potential for new writers. Andrea, follow up to her question about academic writing. Just to be clear, when you say writing, this means writing only, right? If you need to do research, i.e. reading this would be a separate minimum viable commitment to support the writing, for example. Yeah, choose your one keystone habit that you're focusing on. And if you want to be a writer, that would be writing. So just focus on writing. And yeah, if there are support activities that you want to do on the side, like for example, when I was focusing on growing my writing career, I did do quite a bit of reading on top of that, but it was always ancillary. And I had built up that writing habit so well that I knew for sure that I was going to write almost every day. So reading became kind of icing on the cake. Hi, Ayo. So I've started writing and attempted to sign up for the Medium Partnership Program. However, because I live in Trinidad and Tobago, they do not have a means for setting up a Stripe account. Therefore, by extension, can't sign up. I still want to continue writing on the site. Should I? Yeah, I still think you should consider writing on the website for sure. You can still use Medium to build up an audience so that maybe in the future, if Stripe is integrated into your country, you can start to earn, or you could have people sign up to your email list to which you could use that platform to parlay that to something else in the future. Yeah, I've noticed that there are a couple countries where Medium doesn't support them because they don't have Stripe integration in their country. So that is really kind of a tough problem. Maybe, I don't know. Do you have a friend in the States? Do you have a friend in a country who you trust to allocate you those funds later via PayPal or something if they were to set up an account? That might be another route. That was one thing I was thinking of for people who don't have access to Stripe. Like if you know anybody in a country who does, maybe ask if they could use their bank account information. I know it's really kind of touchy to ask them, but Medium would only deposit funds. It wouldn't ever subtract funds. So if you have somebody who you could trust and maybe understands that and maybe get them to do a workaround that way, that's one solution I've thought of. But other than that, you are going to have to write on Medium, or you could focus on having a WordPress blog on top of that and kind of working on some other things. I'll add some additional information to the writing course here eventually on strategies on top of Medium, but I wanted to kind of use Medium as that primary segment because it was so useful. Is Medium good for fiction as well? Not as good as it is for nonfiction. I will be honest with you in that regard. I don't see a ton of people who are doing well with fiction on Medium. And I actually usually do tend to steer people who are into fiction away to other resources just because it's not really in my competency. I don't pretend to know a lot about fiction. So again, thecreativepen.com, Sean Platt and Johnny B. Truant. There's another woman whose name is escaping me right now, KM Weiland. So these are all self-published fiction authors who talk about everything it takes to be successful in fiction writing. The one strategy I've heard about fiction writing is that if you want to be a successful self-published fiction writer, you want to like serial publish shorter novels. So what a lot of people do is they create their first novel for free, put that on Amazon, put it through a bunch of free promotion websites, get people to read their free book. And then when you have a free book, you say, you know, you put a little insert in there, like a link that says, hey, if you want to get, you know, updates on future books, sign up for my email list. If you want to get this freebie of like character backstory arcs that you didn't hear in the book, origin stories, sign up for my freebie. So you have to kind of create stuff around that and build up an audience kind of using that vehicle of Amazon. So that's one thing I've heard. Otherwise, go check out those resources because I'm really not super familiar with being successful on fiction writing. Let's see what else we have here. Can you share a template for journaling? Sure. My journaling routine is pretty simple. I write down 3 things I'm grateful for every single day. I do that to keep myself grounded, to remind myself that no matter what ultimately happens in my life, I can be content with what I have right now. So I try to keep myself grounded in gratitude. So I write down 3 things I'm grateful for every day. I also write down 10 ideas every day. That's a technique that I learned from James Altucher. And you can write down 10 ideas about whatever you want. I usually write down 10 ideas for new articles that I want to work on, or 10 ideas for new videos, 10 ideas for new books. So I usually keep it within that wheelhouse. But sometimes I'll write about 10 ideas for random things, 10 ideas to have a fun weekend with my kid, 10 ideas for being more adventurous and exciting in my personal life. So that 10 ideas exercise helps you get in the process of generating ideas. So you become someone who forms an identity of a creative person who has ideas. And then if you write down 10 ideas every single day, if you do that for a year, that's 3,650 ideas. There will certainly be a few good ideas that you can run with if you do that many. And aside from that, when I'm feeling emotionally blocked or I really want to get deep into articulating what's going on in my life, what I want, what my values are, how I'm going to live better in the future, I will do morning pages. So morning pages, technique invented by Julia Cameron. And the way that it works is you take out a notebook and you write 3 full pages of total free writing, unfiltered thought about whatever comes to mind. And usually when you take the act of writing down what's going on in your mind, it becomes less kind of vague mental chatter, and you can actually start to articulate what's going on. You can see some of those blind spots that you have, and it can help some things come to light. So those are my journaling routines. How can I deal with a lack of motivation? Momentum. You have to get momentum. You have to do something in those small increments to build confidence and to build wins. And understand that lack of motivation is a misnomer. Everyone has motivation. Everyone is motivated to do certain things. If I told you, Marco, I have $1 million at my house, you have to come across the country to where I live in Rochester, Minnesota. If you make it here, you will have those $1 million. You would get here. You would figure out how to do what it takes to get here, regardless of what resources you have. If I said, Marco, if you don't start your project, I'm going to kill your entire family, you'd start your project. If I said, Marco, if you're going to go to prison for the next 5 years if you don't get your project off the ground, all of a sudden you would have the motivation to do that project. Motivation always comes when you properly incentivize yourself to have that motivation. Never fall for the myth that you don't have motivation, especially because everything you do in life takes motivation. People say they don't have motivation, but then they wake up and they go to a job. Why? They're incentivized to do so. They have to eat. They have to put a roof over their heads, feed their family, take care of themselves. So they have motivation to do that, even if it's not something they like. People are motivated when they play video games all day or watch TV. They're just motivated towards the wrong end. So you have to understand that there's a certain level of energy inside of you, but it's just being misdirected. The idea that you have a total lack of motivation is a myth. So you have to build that momentum in order to be successful. Yes, WordPress later, but won't you get list on Medium as a newbie? I don't understand that question. Barbara, can you maybe retype that question? I don't understand what you're trying to say. Do you recommend getting obsessed with the 90-day project, or instead try to integrate the new activities in our daily lives? Obsession, always obsession. The idea of balance is a total myth. Everyone's always, oh, you got to have work-life balance. You have to equally balance out everything. No, hell no. Until you have a mission critical focus that you can get to lift yourself out of the kind of low level anxiety that comes with living a life you don't want to live, like you should not be focused on anything else. That's my opinion. I had lots of different interests I wanted to chase, but primarily I wanted to become a writer and I wanted to make enough income so that I didn't have to work for somebody else. Now all of a sudden, I have time to explore my interests. I'm going and hopping on a plane to go to Miami in 2 days in the middle of the week. Going to travel. I'm vlogging for fun in the middle of the week because I had a mission and purpose first, a project I worked on first, something to help with my financial circumstances first. Now I have all the time in the world to focus on hobbies and other things. So yeah, as best as you can, get obsessed with your project. The more momentum you put into your project, use that calendar strategy. That's a really good strategy. The more you get into it, the deeper you get into it, the more likely you are to continue. Have I written any fiction, and how difficult do you think it is to switch from nonfiction to fiction? I tried to write a fiction novel once when I was like 18 years old. Didn't make it past a couple pages. Maybe I'll write some fiction in the future. That's something I'm way down the road. Like when I'm 50 years old and I've published 20 nonfiction books, maybe I'll publish a fiction book. How difficult do I think it is to switch from nonfiction to fiction? In my opinion, they seem like distinct mediums, and I don't think it's necessarily difficult to switch from one to the other other than the fact that I wouldn't use the word difficult. I would use that you would just kind of have to start over, in that 100% of your skills as a nonfiction writer aren't going to 100% translate over to fiction. I think that since you'll have the writing habit, since you know how to write, since you know how to put words together, you'll have a leg up over someone who's never written anything before. So I do think it makes that transition a little bit easier. But yeah, they're definitely different mediums, and you'll kind of have a brand new learning curve that you'll have to go through when starting over. Do other authors use your writing content in their blog? Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes other authors use my writing. They quote me. Sometimes people scrape my content and republish it. I really don't care. Paulo Coelho, author of The Alchemist, he pirated his own work and put it for free on torrents all across the web. He plagiarized his own work and gave it away for free to a bunch of people. Why did he do that? Because it got the name out about Paulo Coelho. People, don't worry about people stealing your ideas. Never worry about people stealing your ideas. You want your ideas to spread. Who cares? If someone's really trying to plagiarize your stuff, they'll never be you. They'll never be comparable to you. And people are pretty smart. If they're familiar with the ecosystem, they'll realize where it comes from. You know, sometimes I see people and they swiped a little bit of my stuff, and I'm happy that they did that, because the way that I built my writing career, I swiped other people's stuff. I mimicked people all the time. I looked up to James Altucher quite a bit. I mimicked a lot of his style. I mimicked a lot of the style of Ryan Holiday and Tim Ferriss and all these other writers that I kind of looked up to. And that's kind of how you know, it's like the book Steal from an Artist, Austin Kleon. If you steal from one person, it's plagiarizing. But if you steal from 200 people, then it's original work. So you're kind of combining and reverse engineering the work of other people, and they're doing the same for you. If someone straight up plagiarizes your stuff, like, that kind of sucks, but it's not really that big of a deal. If Medium doesn't see a fit for a blog I've submitted, will they share it elsewhere, like PS I Love You or other platforms? No, they won't. It'll kind of just reside on your profile, uncurated. Medium likes to post that this particular blog is a 3-minute read, 7-minute read, etc. What do you consider ideal? They've done studies. Some people have done independent studies on Medium that found that 7-minute read was the ideal length, 7 to 8 minutes. I think that's about 1,200 to 1,500 words, long enough to where it has some depth, but not too long that people don't get tired of reading it. Mine usually end up anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes, actually more like 8 to 12. I write pretty long pieces, and that's just kind of what I got accustomed to doing. But then I have some other colleagues like, you know, Darius Faru, my friend Nick, their articles, Brianna Wiest, sometimes their articles are only 2 minutes long. You know, there's a lot of theirs are in the 3 to 5 minute range. So it's really never the length of content. It's how good your content is. It's always how good. I've seen people at every minute length do incredibly well. I've seen people, you know, my buddy John Gorman, he's written a couple of pieces that are 30 minutes long. Like, he just likes to go in and just tell these crazy stories, and he's successful. I can't pull off a 30-minute blog, but he can. So it's all about what style fits you most. Love your work. If you need an assistant or intern of any kind, run administrative errands, I would love to help. Yeah, maybe. Send me an email. My first and last name at gmail.com. We can talk later. So you go for the creative mind and not to the competitive mind, right? Yeah, I don't try to compete with other people. I'm not going to act like I'm not infallible to envy. Like, there are some other writers. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? I kind of think I'm better than you. Maybe, you know, I should be getting as many views as you. Like it's human nature to get jealous from time to time, but for the most part, I try to just focus on what I'm doing. I have whatever innate capacity and potential that I have as a writer, and I'm best served as maxing that out, right? So, maybe the best version of Ayo as a writer, maybe I'll never be Malcolm Gladwell. Maybe he's just an insane, talented writing freak that I'll never be able to match. Maybe I won't be Tim Ferriss. Maybe I'll never hit the New York Times bestseller list. But if I max out my potential as a writer, I can get pretty damn good. And I have gotten pretty damn good. And I believe that the full extent of my potential can be something amazing over a long enough career. So I just put my head down and work for the most part. I don't really think about other writers too much. Alexi just shouting me out. Thank you so much. I appreciate your support. 100%. Thank you all for showing up. You mentioned a writing course. I'm guessing this is separate from the Medium course. Do you have any tips on marketing or self-publishing a nonfiction book? I think I'm going to actually tack on more to the Medium course as time goes on. Medium is, I think, the central kind of playground where I think writers should focus on honing their craft. But then there is more outside of Medium that you can do to be successful. Like, for example, self-publishing books, guest posting on other websites, using SEO to build your personal blog, potentially creating a coaching or consulting service on the back end. So there's a lot of other things you can do outside of that, but I wanted to create something focused on Medium first. So, I haven't really decided yet. I haven't decided whether the scope of the course will go beyond Medium or whether or not maybe I'll just leave the Medium course kind of focused on Medium and then eventually come up with a more expansive course or coaching program. Like I'm going to put out a coaching program for writers who want to work with me more directly, where we'll be talking about other things. So I have a lot of different ideas in the works. So to be honest, I don't really know yet, but I will keep you posted when I know. Do you have any tips for marketing a self-published nonfiction book? Yeah, you want to build up an audience to share that book with. Having an email list helps. It's harder to get your book out there when you have nobody to promote it to. So I focus on building your email list. Using promotional tools, there's certain promotional websites that you can use to self-publish your book. Like for my first 2 books, I followed the 99-cent strategy from Steve Scott. So you can Google his name, Steve Scott. He talks a lot about self-publishing. And what you do is you put your book out there for 99 cents, which doesn't seem like a lot of money. But there are a lot of websites that'll promote your 99-cent book and help you get some initial sales. And then if you have an audience, you can say, hey, my book's only 99 cents. Like, go buy my book, right? And so when you do that, it kind of tells the algorithm that your book is selling. So the Amazon algorithm doesn't necessarily care too much about the price. So you can set your book to 99 cents, leave it at that price for like a week or a month to get those initial sales. Then you can move up the price to something more reasonable. And the theory is that the algorithm will kind of carry your book a little bit for you and help publish your book. So that's kind of the strategy I used for my first 2 books when I had less of an audience than I do now. This most recent book, I set it to the highest price I possibly could for ebook, put a pretty decent price for paperback. Then I promoted it with my list. I recruited a group of other peers to help promote my book, and I gave them a 50% commission on the book. So that's called affiliate marketing. So affiliate marketing is something you can do. So I told them to share the offer with their tribe. So that same offer I put with a free course, I also had my affiliates send that offer to their tribes about getting the free course for exchange in the book. They got a 50% profit from the book and then helped me get some additional sales. So those are kind of the things I did. Maybe in the future, I'll put together kind of a more detailed breakdown of how that happened, but those are some book marketing tips. I'm Italian. For some reason, the Italian medium is dead as a doorknob. The last article is from 2017. Should I write in English or try to revive the Italian page? Write in English. You have to write in English. I'm going to make a hard line and say that if you want to be successful on Medium, you have to write in English. The vast majority of Medium.com readers are English speaking, so I don't really see an avenue where you're successful unless you write in English. The best way to get traction on Medium, do literally 100% of the things that I say in the Medium course and publish 3 to 5 articles a week. Do the strategies in the course as I say to do them instead of the way that you want to do them, and then figure out your own writing voice from there. So that means write how-to articles, write listicles, use the word you in your content like I say in the course. I have a list of like 10 different strategies. Try each of those different writing techniques and strategies that I say to use in the course. I have techniques showing you which are the most popular topics and messages to do in the course. I have exercises on creating customer reader avatars and finding the type of people you want to write for. Go through those exercises one by one. Do not skip a step. Let me know how it goes going through that course and spending 90 days writing based on the instructions I give. And then after that, decide how you want to write. Is the Medium course linked to the new book? How do you build an email list? Yeah, I gave the Medium course out for people who bought the book. Yeah, so it was like a bonus for everyone who bought the book during the launch week period. How do you build an email list? Short answer is you ask people to join your email list at the end of your blog post. So you create something called like a landing page. So you can use a website like Lead Pages, or like a lot of email marketing providers have landing page builders. So what you do is you create this page that says, hey, join my email list. You know, you can offer them something like a little, like a little freebie ebook, like a little checklist in exchange for signing up. That strategy is kind of dying down a little bit. You know, often you can just say, hey, join my email list, and just use it as a bridge to continue communicating. Like a lot of my colleagues, they kind of have ditched the idea of creating like a lead magnet or a freebie, because oftentimes a lot of people will just sign up for like your free book and then they don't really care about you. But just prompt people to join your email list so that they can keep in touch with you. That's so you can share more of your writing with them. So that's pretty much, especially on Medium now, just say, hey, you want updates on my writing? I want to share cool stuff with you. You know, as long as you kind of give them the sense that you're not going to be super pushy with your marketing, just say, hey, join my email list. Put your email on this little landing page. We'll be friends in the future. You know, that's how I look at people on my email list. Like, they're my friends. We're online buddies, and I'm just trying to share value with them, and hopefully they get some value out of it. And I kind of get to know people and meet people. So use that approach and share with your email list. Kevin, this guy is amazing. Kevin, that's my buddy. That's my homie. He's always bigging me up. Thanks for joining the live stream, Kevin. Thanks for supporting me, brother. I appreciate you. Yeah, I'll go on until people are, I guess, out of questions. And I do have some online questions that I need to get to as well. I understood that you said that Medium is the best place to blog over WordPress. Do you suggest you publish every day, even if you think it's not great, supposing you are writing daily? Medium seems scary. I was aiming for the website to begin, as it seems less daunting. You don't have to publish every day, but you should write every day. You don't have to publish every day. It's kind of a really heavy clip to go on if you're a beginner, but you should write something every day. If you want to put a hard cap on how much you should publish, ideally, I would say 2 articles published per week, I think would be enough to build a solid habit. Once you are comfortable with that, get more in the 3 to 5 range. Being successful on Medium, especially now because it's definitely more saturated than it was in the past, you're going to have to put together a pretty consistent volume of articles, somewhere between 3 to 5, to be successful. Like me, I think this month I published roughly 20 articles. But again, I've had 5 years of traction and experience. Medium seems scary. I was aiming for a website to begin with as it seems less daunting. In the beginning when you're on Medium, barely anyone's going to read your stuff anyways. So it's basically the same thing as if you're publishing on your blog. Don't be too worried about people judging your work, because in the beginning, nobody is going to know who you are, nor will they really all that much care. It's kind of a phenomenon in life. Everybody wants to see the finished product. Nobody cares about your struggle. Like everyone knows me. Oh, it's Ayo. Oh, Ayo, top writer on Medium. They don't have a picture of me in their mind where nobody who knew who I was, where I was just practicing and flailing around, where nobody gave a flying you-know-what about what I was doing. But guess what? When nobody cared what I was doing, I could just practice unencumbered without worrying about people judging my work. Then, when I got a little better, I got some more eyeballs, had the momentum, had the quality to be able to deal with the kind of feedback from other people. So just right. Nobody's going to really, for all of you new writers, nobody's going to be reading all your stuff right away. You're not going to get very many views in the beginning. I'm just going to tell you that straight up. You have to get over that. What motivates you every day to write? Also, how much time do you spend reading books a day? The human condition motivates me to write. The human condition just fascinates me. It's just the whole spectrum of the way we live. Like, why are we so afraid to do the things that we want to do with our life? That fascinates me. Why are we all seemingly stuck doing things we don't want to do, when the logical conclusion should be that we are just living our most authentic lives and doing exactly what we want to do day in and day out? Why do we struggle so much? Why is there this inner critic? I just look and observe. There's so many things about the human condition that fascinates me. You see people in the street and you look at the expression on your face and you think, like, how did they end up that way? Or you see people who are really successful and you're like, how did they end up that way? How can people from similar circumstances end up with entirely different outcomes on life? So everything about humans just entirely fascinates me. And just look at all the questions we have in the chat. We're all going through all of these things in our mind day in and day out. So for me, that kind of gives me endless material. Also, how much time do you spend reading books a day? I actually have not been reading a ton of books lately. I used to read quite a bit. I used to read basically an hour or two every day for a couple years. But now I'm actually kind of focused more on creative output, and I actually read a lot of blogs, and I watch a lot of YouTube videos on things I'm interested in. So right now I'm watching short YouTube clips on investing in real estate. Those are two areas I'm really focused on in the future, learning how to invest in the stock market, learning real estate. So I'm kind of ingesting these little tidbits of information that way. Not doing a ton of reading, but yeah, back in the day, I used to read an hour or two a day, sometimes 4, 5, 6 hours, crazy hours worth of reading. I suggest for people who don't have a reading habit, I've read hundreds of books at this point, 30 minutes a day is pretty good, or 30 pages. 30 minutes, 30 pages. Does Medium ever give beginners feedback on what they've submitted? Hell no. They give you no feedback. They don't care about you. You have to care about yourself. You have to do the work. You have to put yourself in a position to succeed. You have to follow instructions, put your work out there, and then eventually you will get feedback. You get feedback in the form of comments from your audience. If you pitch your work to publications on Medium, sometimes they will tell you whether or not they liked your article and why. It all depends. If you're in groups with writers, I talk about the fact that writing groups online can be a little bit of a trap. But if you're looking for feedback, put your stuff in some of those groups, get some feedback from them, work with other people. But no, Medium itself, Medium doesn't care about you. You have to care about yourself and do the work and put it in front of the right people. So I need to do the Medium course then. Yes, if you have access to the Medium course, go through the entire Medium course, and then if you still have questions, you can reach out to me and ask me writing related questions. Like, trust me, I'm more than willing to help people with writing. I get questions about writing every single day. You'll never learn as much about writing from me than you will by actually doing it yourself. It's like there's certain basic frameworks that you can use to be a successful writer, particularly in the traditional blogging style that I teach. So I definitely teach the traditional blogging style. So there's different styles of writing. So, I'm like your sensei in one form of writing. So I teach you the quote unquote tiger claw version of writing, which is blogging traditional style. So there's other people who write essays, who write historical accounts, who write long narratives. That's not entirely my wheelhouse, but I do think that learning my style first and just getting the writing habit under your belt can teach you to do other things in the future. Like now, I think because I built my style in the traditional blogging sense, I can do other things. I do think and plan on writing a memoir in the future. I have written some heavily narrative essays where I come primarily from the first person. But since I learned traditional blogging techniques that kind of help you and force you to relate to other people, I can write a personal account about myself without it being this kind of mental masturbatory brain dump of my life. You know what I mean? So learn those techniques first, and then you can go your own lane and pivot in a different direction later. Fear is the killer for sure. Yeah, there's plenty of things I'm afraid. I'm afraid all the time. I'm constantly afraid. Every day I wake up and I'm like, it's all going to come crumbling down. Medium's going to shut down and I'm going to lose half my income. I'm going to be scrambling, I'm going to be homeless out on the street. All my fans are going to abandon me. We're going to be homeless, penniless. I have fears all the time. What do I do? Either I can be afraid. I see the one thing that helps me. I know I'm going to be afraid. So I just you can be afraid and do the thing, or you can be afraid and not do the thing. So if you're afraid and you don't do the thing, that sucks doubly twice. But if you're afraid and do the thing, the fear does lessen over time. I'm definitely much more confident than I was in the past. So yeah, keep doing the work. How can I stop attaching validation from others to my self-worth? Oh, you're inhaling too much toxic validation from everyone else. Dude, it's hard. That's, all of our problems stem from validation from other people. We're afraid of social rejection. And the one thing that can help, a couple of things that can help deal with social rejection is really to understand the fact that nobody actually cares what you're doing at all. Go to a crowded venue. Go to a crowded venue and just stand there. You can stand there for an hour and nobody will look at you. You might as well not even be there. No one cares what you're doing. Everyone is in their head, worried about themselves just as much as you're in your head, worrying about yourselves. And just think about the people that you're trying to impress. So, Marcus Aurelius has a quote, and he says, you want the approval of people who kick themselves every 15 minutes. You want the approval of people who despise themselves. So you have to think about the fact that everyone else is dealing with their own inner critic, and no one else is walking around supremely confident all the time. There are few people who are like that. So just focus on yourself and building self-worth from within. I mean, even me, I'm a content creator, and a big part of why I like creating content is I do like attention. I do like views. I do like the validation of other people. It's a problem that I deal with. But the way that I'm able to produce the content and get it out there is that I understand that first and foremost, in order to even get that validation in the first place, I have to work on creating good content. I have to work on myself. I have to come from a good place. So counterintuitively, to kind of get that validation that I want, I can't care too much about it, right? It's like success and validation is kind of like, you can't be super duper needy and wanting it to happen right away. So, success is kind of like a cat. If you go up and try to pet a cat right away, it's like running away from you. It's like, get away from me. But if you kind of ignore the cat and you just kind of do your own thing, then the cat looks at you and they're kind of like, what's up with this person? They're not paying that much attention to me. And then cat comes and sits on your lap out of nowhere. So that's kind of how success works. That's kind of how getting people to come around to your corner works. The more you kind of focus on working on yourself, then you kind of attract the validation you wanted in the first place. Let's see here. Medium seems to be huge on format. What are a few things that must be avoided? I would avoid long walls of text. Super long walls of text cause strain on the eye. Break up your paragraphs. Use bold. Use bullet points. Use subheadings. Use images. I insert images in between different sections of my content to kind of give the eye a break. And in the Medium course, I have an entire section on formatting, on what works. So a lot of your Medium-related questions, if you have access to the Medium course, if you did get the course within the launch window, you can find the answers in there. Let's see here. Going back to the 90-day project, we spoke of the minimum time commitment, but didn't speak about the planning. Is it less important in the beginning? I do think it's less important in the beginning, but here for week 4, when I come up with the next lesson that I'm going to put out later tonight, we'll focus a little bit more on the planning. So brief overview on planning, we can go over it right now. You got to think about the kind of critical components that are required in your particular niche. So like, let's say you're a writer and you want to build a successful blog on Medium. Well, you're going to need to figure out what kind of content you want to write. So part of your planning could be coming up with ideas for your content. You need to figure out what works. Actually, if you go through the Medium course itself, it kind of teaches you start to finish how to plan out what your content is going to be about, how to research your audience. So go in there and check more about that. But like, let's say you're doing something like you want to start a business. You want to start an e-commerce shop and you have 90 days to do that. Well, you're going to have to do a certain degree of planning. You're going to have to figure out what platform you want to use. So basically in all online business related things, Medium, e-commerce, freelancing, you got to figure out what platforms you're going to use. Are you going to use Shopify? Are you going to use WooCommerce? That's an example. You got to start doing research into products. So you might look at, different products on Shopify, what's selling well, what manufacturers are available. Not necessarily the greatest example right now with everything that's going on in China, but you get what I'm saying. If you want to be a freelancer, you have to figure out what does a freelancer need to be successful? They need to build a portfolio of showcasing what their skills are. So maybe if you don't have the skills, you might have to spend your entire 90 days building the skill that you need to display in your portfolio. Maybe you need a website. You need to figure out where you're going to get clients from. So maybe you're going on LinkedIn. Maybe you're going on places like Upwork. Maybe for a lot of you, going through and finding some resource in your niche above and beyond what I can teach you, if it's outside of my competency, might be a good example for you. So for example, one person mentioned that they are taking a copywriting course that teaches you start from finish, how to be a copywriter, and then how to find clients. So you could have one level of planning, which would be just to go buy that course and spend 90 days doing that. Again, for those of you who are in the Medium course, really just go through the Medium course and spend the next 90 days building out your platform. So I'll talk a little bit more in depth about planning, but I'm not a huge fan of planning because most people don't really plan. They just use it as an excuse to delay doing the work and kind of mentally masturbate instead of actually doing the work. Let's take a look at some of the pre-recorded questions that I have down. Now I'm focusing on writing. I want to commit and write something every day. I published an article on Medium, and even though I see your point about focusing on learning rather than making views, I would like someone to read my article. I'm not talking about thousands of views, but just 50 views would be okay. Writing is for yourself, but it is also for others to see the product of your work. So question is, should I be bothered if nobody reads my articles, or should I write for myself? Okay, so here's the thing. You do want to get those views, but you're never going to get them. And this is for Jacopo Bibiani, who left me a comment on Facebook that he wanted me to reply to. So in order to get those views, you're going to have to practice getting better so you can get those views. So that, you know, something has to come first. Cart has to come. Horse comes before the cart, or however else you pronounce it. So if you want to get 50 views, if you actually go through the Medium course, there's an easy track for you to get 50 views. Don't write idiosyncratic personal journal narratives that are vomiting out minute aspects of your life. Write about topics that people care about. I have a section about that in the course. Write headlines that attract people. Focus on practicing those headlines. Find publications you can write for. I give a concrete list of publications. Study what other writers are doing. I gave examples of writers being successful in every niche. And I also put exercises teaching you how to reverse engineer their strategies, writing down notes about what makes them good or what makes them, you know, something that you want to deviate a little bit from. I have exercises in the course about creating a customer avatar, creating a reader avatar, parsing out the interests, you know, for those of you who are asking questions and who have access to the course, I can tell some of you haven't gone through it. So you have to go through it in order to get what you want. See, this is what happens with people. They kind of throw their hands up in the air and they say, you know, you tell me to write to learn, but I'm not getting views. But you're not even doing the first step. How are you going to get views if you're not doing the first step? This is a metaphor for life. How are you going to get what you want unless you're going to go through the steps and follow directions? Follow directions. I could probably say the number one reason people are not successful in life, A, they don't want to follow directions. B, they want to skip steps. If there are 24 steps to the process of becoming a successful writer, you have to do all 24, not 23, not 22, not 21, do all 24. So 50 views, if you went through all the steps in my course and put your work in the right publications and you didn't get 50 views, I'd be surprised. So I can tell that you haven't done that yet. So do that first. Last question, is there a time limit to complete the Medium course? Doing my study on a course for online business also. No, there's no time limit. Just pick one. If you don't want to take the Medium course right away and you want to do the online business course first, by all means, do that one first. Do one thing at a time. Pick one thing to work on. Shiny object syndrome. Failing to follow directions. You guys are all suffering from similar symptoms, and you all deep down know the remedy. Is this going to make me a Super Saiyan? Maybe. You never know. You never know. You know, maybe one module will be standing there and charging yourself up and, you know, until your aura creates so you can Kamehameha. I don't know, dude. Maybe. Let's see what else we have. Let's go to some of the ones I have in my email. Question from Georgia Patrick. One issue I would love for you to address is what you have experienced with the constant working on your own head trash or head enlightenment, all the while getting on with traction and doing the work and being the best version of yourself each day. Specifically, it's tempting to digest everything in part one of your book so we can jump to action and feel the traction part in part 2 and 3. For a long time, I thought it best not to dwell on philosophical and overthinking about yourself, rather get on with serving people that match your whole strength and interest points. What I am now seeing upon the third reading of your book is nobody until you showed me when and how often to answer a really fundamental question. Who are you really? Nearly all the time, inevitably so. If you don't have that who to the core answer really clear and consistent, you might just become some sort of self-improvement addict. Final question, what would you suggest as for how often and in what way we revisit, re-answer, update our truths, all found in the thoughts and questions in part one of your book? Really what I think this question is trying to ask is kind of how to balance the philosophical and pragmatic aspects of your life, like how to balance dealing with your mental chatter through the process of sifting through your emotions, journaling, taking personality tests, taking an inventory on your life, sitting down, meditating on your life, as well as being pragmatic and doing the steps in whatever your project is, whatever your path is, whatever your 90-day project and beyond, so to speak. Make the pragmatic part the primary, make the philosophical the secondary. In my book, I created part one to be heavily philosophical and in your face and blunt because I wanted to wake you up and force you to understand how dire the situation of your life is. Then you move into the pragmatism. So I knew that if I just gave people the steps and didn't kind of lead them up to it with some emotional spikes, that it would be hard for them to follow through. So you do want to have a combination of emotionally spiking yourself and also doing the work. So I emotionally spike myself and I geek myself up all the time. I will meditate and visualize a person who I want to become. But then I go ahead and do my writing sessions after that. When I fail to follow through with something, I kind of beat myself up a lot. I'm like, come on, Ayo, like, why aren't you doing this? You have one life to live. Like, why aren't you doing the thing? And then I do the thing a little bit more. So it's a combination of the philosophical and the pragmatic. And usually what'll happen, it's like, so like throughout my day, I'll wake up, I meditate, I journal, I write, I read and or watch YouTube videos, I exercise, I'm mindful of myself, I'm constantly updating and auditing my core philosophies, and I'm constantly improving. But that all started in the beginning where I was basically just writing a little bit and reading a little bit. So as you move forward, as soon as you develop one habit, one kind of core competency, it's much easier to do everything else. Like when I started my YouTube channel, I had 0 followers. I knew that I was never going to quit doing YouTube before I even started the channel. I knew when I did my first video that I wasn't going to quit. Why? Because I'd already been through the process of following through with something. Once you follow through with something once, you can do it over and over again. And after you do it for a sustained period of time, usually years, you get motivation on autopilot. You see that person who's like almost too in shape, too buff for their own good. They're too strong. They have too many muscles. Do they need motivation to go to the gym? 0. They just expect to do it. So the more that you kind of exercise your muscles of creative expression, of building habits in that core competency, the easier it becomes. And then kind of in the background of your life, you're actually able to kind of philosophically develop your core personality in a much more efficient way because you're backed by the foundation of having those habits in place. So your philosophical nature doesn't bump into that. You don't have to worry about your philosophical musings about your life getting in the way of the work. So do the work first, and then you will be able to, be more philosophical later. Where's the 8-week course? The 8-week course was available for people who purchased the book during the launch window, which was the second half of January. So if you're on the live stream, I think some people on YouTube might happen to be on the live stream, but aren't in the group who got access to that course. Unfortunately, I do have to honor my commitment and not offer that course to anyone who didn't buy the course during the launch period. In the future, I will retool some of these courses and put them out again, but for now, they're closed off to the people who bought the book during the launch period. Hi, I have a somewhat personal and open question to ask. Is that there's a person I can't help thinking about in my younger years after I found a picture of this person in our youth. I lost contact with this person a very long time ago. I'm going through a rough patch right now, but I think this person I think about in my younger years gives me hope in life. The more I remember about this individual, I know it sounds reminiscing, but this individual gives me hope. I know it's long, but short story. I was wondering why we do this when reminiscing in the past. That is when all we have. And that is all we have when everything feels like we're falling apart. I just want to keep this. Oh, sorry. Sorry, that person wanted to keep it confidential. My bad. I did not know until the end of that email. Just everyone disregard that email, please. Hi, I live in Nigeria and I haven't been able to sign up into Medium's partnership program because Stripe doesn't operate there. Any advice on what I should do? Keep writing on Medium until they get that problem solved. Use Medium to build an audience for your writing in general, which you can parlay into other things in the future. And maybe if you have a friend stateside or in a country that has access to Stripe, ask them if they can sign up for a Medium account on your behalf and transfer you the money. Kind of a long shot, but give it a try. Nicole, I have a question. What strategy do you use to hold yourself accountable? Setting goals and planning and starting a new habit are the easy parts, but staying on the course without getting distracted is the hard part. Actually, one strategy I use in particular to keep myself accountable, I think about dying a lot. I kind of have a almost obsession with my own mortality. And anytime I feel scared, I'm like, you're going to die. Why are you wasting your time? Like, you're going to die. It could be today. You never know. And I think about my mortality quite a bit and keeps me from wasting too much time. I'm not perfect, but I like to extrapolate out into the future a lot. What my life, A, not only the fact that my life could end at any moment, but B, I extrapolate what my life is going to look like if I continue to hesitate. I use other people as models for what it'll look like if I hesitate. So I observe a lot of people who I can tell have hesitated in their life, and I look at the outcomes that it's gotten them. I look at their facial expressions. I look at their eyes. I look at the way they interact with the world, and I turn fear on its head. A lot of people are afraid of kind of what they'll experience in the process of going for their goals. They focus on the fear of rejection, the fear of embarrassment, the fear of falling short, getting an egg on their face. I actually focus on what the fear will feel like. I actually focus on the fear, of not doing the things that I want. I'm afraid of that. I'm afraid of inaction. I'm afraid of waking up, being old and realizing that I wasted my life. I'm afraid of being in a position where, I'm dead. I'm no longer able to have any time to follow my dreams. So I use that fear and I just point it in a different direction. I've read so much so far in self-improvement. My problem is now I know what to do, know how to do it, but I still don't do it. I keep sabotaging everything. It happens both in my work and at home. This is the thing I suffer from the most. I realize, but I can't overcome it. The thing with self-sabotage, you have to understand that you are getting something from self-sabotage. You're getting a payoff for sabotaging yourself. So one way I used to sabotage myself quite a bit is I would quit things when they got hard. I would quit early. And I would ask myself, like, Ayo, why are you sabotaging yourself and failing to follow through? And I realized the payoff that I was getting from it was that I was able to maintain that identity of kind of the intelligent kid with potential who could kind of coast through life and get what they wanted. So when things got hard, I sabotaged it because it would destroy that identity of me being, kind of the natural with potential. Then I realized being a natural is worthless. Being a natural is something that has no worth. Actually following through and implementing has worth. So you have to understand what payoff you're getting from sabotaging yourself. Why do people act out? People act out and they misbehave because they get a payoff of attention. They get that payoff of validation. So you have to figure out what your self-sabotage mechanism is, what the payoff you get, and you kind of replace it with another vice. So it's like people who smoke a lot, when they quit smoking, they start chewing gum. They do something to replace it. So for me, the payoff that I used was kind of, I could confirm a new, better identity of the person that I really wanted to be. So I switched that payoff of becoming potential, and I had a new payoff of like being kinetic. I got addicted to what it felt like to follow through. And you'll notice the more you do something, you'll get addicted to getting those outcomes. You'll get those little dopamine spikes of feeling good for actually doing the work. And then you'll start to create more of these like reference experiences and subconscious wins in your mind that'll help you be more successful. And look, guys, there's nothing that I can tell you that will fully replace you doing whatever that first step is. Nobody can do it for you. Nobody. There's nothing I can say to force you to do it. All of you are going to be off of this live stream soon, and it's up to you. Ideally, you could be sitting down to write your blog post today. Whether or not you do that is on you. You could be going to do your research, finishing your course. I can't do that for you. What I can tell you is that if you get the momentum consistently, good things will start to happen. I will open it up. Two or three more questions. Next 2 or 3 to come in, I'll answer those. Would you consider selling the Real Help course to someone who missed the window? Yep, I will be doing paid versions of both courses using feedback from people who are in the group. So people who are in the group, I'm going to get feedback from them, revamp it, and put it out probably as paid versions in the future. So yeah, that's the answer to that question. 1 or 2 more. How do you manage time in your day so much to fit in each day? I don't do a whole lot. My whole workday at best, if I'm lucky, I get anywhere from 2 to 6 heavily focused, creative hours done in a day. And then the rest of the day, I kind of fumble about. I do administrative stuff. Maybe I'll shoot some videos. Maybe I'll do some emails, work on some projects, but I never take myself too seriously past a certain point. So whatever your time commitment you need to feel like everything else is a win after that, just focus on that. Yeah. Regarding the calendar chain, I'm using a goal tracker app on my phone. My suggestion, don't keep more than 3 daily activities to follow. I've ended up with long chains of red X's, not done, instead of green checks, done. Yeah, red X's, green checks, mechanisms. For me, personally, I wouldn't even mark times that I missed the goal. Just create a chain of positive habits. And mark off the times you do get done. Last thing, maybe there's a rule called never screw up 2 times in a row. I learned that from James Clear. So if you wanted to work out, if you missed 1 day, don't miss 2. If you wanted to write every day and you missed 1 day, don't miss 2. If you have a minimum viable time commitment and you miss one day, don't miss two. Don't create a negative downward spiral. So allow yourself room for one mulligan. If you mess up, don't do it 2 days in a row. All right, guys, that is a wrap for today. I'm going to work on the next section of the course. I hope you guys had a great time. I hope you got your questions answered. I hope it was valuable for everyone. Super great to be here. Super great to meet all of you. And I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much.